Hi, everyone. Thanks, Louise, for that introduction. As I said, I'm Mary, design systems designer here at the FT. I work closely with Tricky and the Origami team, which is the name of our design system, and then also designers across the business. So shout out everyone that's here today. Thanks for coming. So today I will be talking about our journey to a federated design system through collaboration. Why collaboration isn't always easy. I want to share some of the tactics that we've employed and the joys that we've had along the way. My hope is that I will leave you here with practical insights on how collaboration can make a team stronger, even when it is always easy. Okay, the challenge. So I'm going to dial things back a little bit. A quick show of hands. Has anyone here ever used an IKEA product or visited an IKEA store? Oh, wonderful. So we would understand the analogy I'm about to make. What makes IKEA business so wonderful, so successful? It's not just about the furniture, right? It's about how they enable everyday creativity at scale. And this applies to our goal as design system here at the FT. The way it translates to us is us being able to build modular components that makes it easier to deliver high quality experiences across our products. Also, IKEA provides step-by-step instructions that guide users to the end product. And for us, what that means is guidance, very clear guidance, easy to use documentation that engineers can work with confidence. Also, with things like accessibility and consistency baked into the design system, second guessing is reduced, and that means that trust is high and adoption is also high. So earlier this year, my partner and I, we moved houses, and then we did, as you can imagine, we did loads and loads of ideation on how we wanted our TV console to look like. And IKEA was a huge partner in that because we had to look at different variations from what they present and then use that to get to what we have on the screen. And I'm sure that many of us here have been in that position at one point or the other, even if what we ended up with was not exactly what we planned to do. And what does this mean for our design system? With the basics sorted, teams can then tackle the bigger UX problems and create experiences that are better for the end users. This is all good stuff, but what is the reality? So the reality is that at the FT, our design system Origami, we have multiple brands, as Tricky mentioned earlier, and not just the website and the app that we see around, but multiple brands, multiple contexts, and our design system is expected to, serve as much as possible. While that's great for reach, it could stretch a small team really fast. Also, the reality is that we were an engineering-led system, and that means that we had loads of engineering components, storybook components, which is very broadly adopted. But on the flip side, design-wise, I don't know if any of you have this problem, but we had very few Figma components and patterns, and which meant that different product teams did their work in silos. We had to rely on audits and then duplicated efforts across boards, leading to also communication gaps, as you can imagine in a big company. Then also, we are a small lean team, and more than half of the team are part-time. So in football terms, you could say that we are funded more like York City rather than Manchester City. And although we do know that we are quite fortunate because plenty of companies don't have dedicated design system teams. What did we do? So the first thing we did was to analyze where we were and where we wanted to be. So at the time, we had loads of web components with an integrated code base and engineering rules. However, we wanted to get to a version which we call Origami 3 that has an equal number of web components and Figma components, and then powered by design tokens for scalability, then also having an integrated code base with guidelines that then help to build creativity and maintain consistency. So to get to a place where it's no longer just about code, it's now a shared language between design and engineering, and then create standards that people can use and then bring the teams closer. So this difference between where we were and where we wanted to be pushed us to rethink how we collaborate. So realizing that we needed to scale, the first plan was to carry out the migration, to move from the component library to a true design system that is reflected across all of our product areas. And this mattered because we were relying on audits, leading to further drift and also costs. But with the migration, when we make a change in the design system, it just cascades across, leading to fewer errors, then also faster delivery. And then our designers wouldn't have to keep maintaining the role of policing consistency. Then we introduced some optimization groups as a tactics in order to make changes that would have large impacts. And we focused on optimizing three key foundations of our system, led by people across the team. So it wasn't just a design system, it was led by designers across different teams. The first element of our foundation that we optimized was typography. And this is because typography is the bedrock of the FT, just like any other news product. And this means large impact, large reach, and better experience for end users, which is our goal. Also, in order to be quite tactical about how we optimize for the biggest reach, Icons presented an opportunity for designers to come together, audit the whole suite, and then take that audit, redesign it, and then create guidelines for Icons to be used more scalably for future contributions. So before I go to the third element, can anyone guess what's the most used component in our design system? You can just shout it out. Button. Yes. yes, buttons. Yeah, so according to Figma Analytics, we have over 92K instances of buttons across 45 teams, which is quite a lot. And that also means that I will talk more about buttons. So buttons was our third optimization area. And apart from the fact that button was used across and provided an opportunity for us to make a change that then has a ripple effect across the products, we discovered that there was the buttons appear quite flat on the page, providing limited distinction between what is a call to action and what is just a static element on the page. And certain themes were quite confused with tags. Then also the height of our standard button was just slightly below the industry standard for touch area on mobile. So these two challenges then pushed us to make further audits. During the audits, we then discovered that over the years, designers have tried to solve for the issue that they have, that we had regarding like the height of button, and then made individual decisions across boards. For instance, as you can see, we have a 48 and then we have a 47 pixel there, which you can attribute to human error. And that could have been avoided if the button met the need of the designer here. So after the audit, I then began to define the changes that we would use to optimize the buttons. That wasn't without its own challenges. And during the optimization, we had to make some compromise. In terms of introducing affordance to the buttons to make it look less flat on the page, we initially proposed a radius of 4 pixels, but that meant that in instances where, for instance, the grouped button where we have an inner radius and an outer radius, to provide the balance visually, we went as far as having 6 pixels. And going from a button that did not have a radius to 6 pixels was a large jump. And then we had to make compromises there. So then we settled on having a 2 pixel radius. And this way we could balance providing affordance and maintaining the FT brand's identity. So at the end of the process, we had an increased standard button height that was then increased to 44 pixels, which is within the range of the guidelines. Then also affordance, a little bit of affordance, while still staying within the FT brand. And then increase our text, which is in line with the typography optimization work. So the three optimization piece of work were working together closely. Standards, standards, standards. This is a crucial aspect of our day-to-day and how we work with design system or just building products in general. And so we introduced design guidelines because previously we had mostly engineering or technical guidelines. And the reason why we did this was, of course, to establish a scalable model for maintaining and uploading and upholding rather our design standards. A good place to start again is buttons. And since we were refining buttons, it provided us an opportunity to optimize, to create guidelines for those optimized buttons. So here we did, after creating like the best practice, how designers should make certain decisions, placements of buttons to provide consistency across. We did some experimentation with ChatGPT to provide like a content template that matches the FT tone and voice. So after multiple tries, we were able to get something that is a template that can then be replicated for subsequent components or pattern guidelines. So still on the design guidelines, at the moment we have an in-house documentation website. And then the challenge with that is that only engineers have close access to these guidelines. And we are working towards a place where designers across the different areas of the product can contribute to our guidelines. So this is the challenge that we have at the moment. If you've solved this issue in your organization, I would love to hear about it. Feel free to chat to me later. As Mufasa said to Simba in Lion King, everything light touches is our kingdom. I'm sure we have our design system folks here, and this is the truth. So even though you're a small team, you have to uphold standards, set foundations, and then enable the designers and the engineers in the organization to build better products. So having experienced success using the optimization projects, we thought about how we could further evolve our ways of working. And we did that by listening more closely to teams. So we reviewed our guild sessions in such a way that became like bi-weekly, but smaller groups of people working together. And how that would translate is if there is a challenge, then the designer or the engineer can come to the guild, and then we can turn in-flight work into system contributions. We've had some success with this new method, and which I'll be sharing on the bottom sheet component. So I'm going to paint a scenario where Chris in our AI team needed a bottom sheet component for a new feature, and he came to the guild, brought this need to the guild, and then we invited. So if you're interested in bottom sheets, or if you used bottom sheets in the past, come have a chat. And then we had this conversation, and then we realized that 3 other teams have either used the bottom sheet component or have it on their roadmap. So one was already in production. And this provided a fabulous opportunity to turn that into a discussion of understanding the different use cases, the one that is currently existing, can it work for the new use case? And if it does work, then we would then avoid reinventing the wheel. And then this also provided us an opportunity to create design guidelines for use cases. Design guidelines is going to make it faster for the subsequent designers that are creating that components, and also ensure consistency, even though they're like in different product teams. So the guild, the new reformed guild, provided us that means for us to be able to have this kind of conversations to begin with and bridge that gap. And then based on the discussed requirements and the best practice, so Chris proceeded to create the bottom sheet guidelines. And following also the design guidelines that we created as a template. It made it easier and made Chris more comfortable contributing the guidelines because he then had something to follow, and then wasn't creating it from scratch. After that, then this was then contributed back into the system. And then in terms of effort to dynamics, because I've explained it like it's so simple, but the actual work is like 1 to 2 weeks of work. But in the reality, it's like 4 or 5 weeks overall with the build reviews back and forth. So what's the way forward? We've already had measurable success via contribution so far. However, that's quite not sustainable. So in order for us to achieve sustainability and scalability, we are currently working on a contribution model. And what that does is to help us define what good is for contribution, to be able to answer the questions, how do I contribute successfully, and what's the governance and what's the contribution model going to look like, so that we don't end up right where we started. So this is evolving at the moment, and we are currently defining what shared ownership would look like for us. The design system will only work if it's a shared responsibility and we build it together. So if we get this right, our teams will spend less time reinventing the wheel and carrying out audits, and then they spend more time solving the actual problems of users. And that's the real win. Thank you.